Okay, so this is the DAF for March 31st, 2025. We're in Sanhedrin 104, trying to play catch up again. So the Gemara elaborates the fact that it distances the near is derived from Ammon and Moab. Although they were relatives of the Jewish people as they descended from Lot, Abraham's nephew, it is prohibited for a Jewish woman to marry a convert from either of those nations because they failed to provide bread and water to the Jewish people in the wilderness. And the fact that it draws near the distant is derived from Yitro, as Rabbi Yochanan says, in reward for Yitro telling his daughters, quote, call him that he may eat bread, Exodus 2:20, inviting Moses to join them for a meal. Yitro's descendants were privileged and sat as scribes in session with the Sanhedrin in the chamber of hewn stone. As it is stated, in the families of the scribes who dwelt in Jabez, the Tirathites, the Shimeathites, Sukkothites, these were the Kenites who came from Hamath, father of the house of Rachav, 1 Chronicles 2:55. And it is written there with regard to the identity of the Kenites, quote, and the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of the palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelt with the people, Judges 1:16. And the fact that it averts eyes from the wicked is derived from Micha, who was not punished because he provided bread to passers-by. And the fact that it caused the divine presence to rest on the prophets of the Baal is derived from the colleague of Iddo, the prophet, the elderly prophet who convinced Iddo to eat with him, contrary to the directive of God, when Iddo went to Bethel to prophesy to Jeroboam, as it is written, quote, and it happened as they sat at the table that the word of the Lord came to the prophet that brought him back. 1 Kings 13:20. Although the elderly prophet was a false prophet, he was rewarded with true prophecy as a reward for hosting Iddo. And the fact that an unwitting transgression with regard to it is at times considered an intentional transgression is derived as Rav Yehuda says, that Rav says, had Yonatan lent David 2 loaves of bread when he was fleeing Saul, David would not have sought sustenance from the priest of Nov. The residents of Nov, city of the priest, would not have been killed, and Doeg the Edomite would not have been banished from the world to come, and Saul and his 3 sons would not have been killed as punishment for that massacre. The Gemara asks, for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate Ahaz among the kings with no share in the world to come? His wickedness is extensively recorded in the Bible. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says he is not enumerated because he is cast between 2 righteous people, between his father Yotam and his son Hezekiah. So Rav Yosef says he is not enumerated because he had a sense of embarrassment from Isaiah the prophet, as it is stated, quote, and the Lord said to Isaiah, go out now to meet Ahaz, you and Sha'ar Yashuv, your son, at the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool, the highway of the launderer's field. Isaiah 7:3. What is the meaning of the term koves, or launders? There are those who say that it means concealed, or kavash, as Ahaz concealed de chav shihu, his face, and passed by the prophet because he was embarrassed to be seen. And there are those who say he placed a launderer's vessel over his head and passed by the prophet so that Isaiah would be able to identify him. The Gemara continues and asks, for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate the wicked Ammon among the kings with no share in the world to come? The Gemara answers, he is not enumerated due to the honor of Josiah, his righteous son. The Gemara challenges, let us also not enumerate Manasseh due to the honor of Hezekiah, his father, his righteous father. The Gemara explains, the son confers merit upon the father, as it is to the father's credit that he raised a righteous son, but the father does not confer merit upon the son, as it is written, none delivers from my hand, Deuteronomy 32:39. Abraham does not deliver his son Ishmael from the judgment of heaven. Isaac does not deliver his son Esau from judgment. The Gemara comments, now that you have arrived at this understanding, Ahaz too was not enumerated in the Mishnah due to the honor of his son Hezekiah. The Gemara asks, and for what reason did the Tanaim not enumerate Jehoiakim among the kings with no share in the world to come? His extreme wickedness is described extensively in the Bible. The Gemara explains, It is due to that which was stated by Rabbi Chia, son of Rabbi Avuya, as Rabbi Chia, son of Rabbi Avuya, says, "It was written on the skull of Jehoiakim, this and yet another, indicating that he will receive a double punishment." The Gemara relates that Rabbi Perida's grandfather, apparently Rabbi Chia, son of Rabbi Avuya, found a skull that was cast near the gates of Jerusalem, and on it was written, "This and yet another." He buried it, but it did not stay buried. He buried it again, and it did not stay buried. Each time he buried the skull and emerged from the grave. He said, "This is no doubt the skull of Jehoiakim, as it is written in this regard, quote, he shall be buried with the burial of a donkey, drawn and cast forth beyond the gates of Jerusalem." Jeremiah 22:19. The fulfillment of this verse is exemplified in the inability to bury him. Rabbi Perida's grandfather said, "He is a king, and it is inappropriate to display contempt for it." He wrapped the skull in silk and placed it in a box. His wife saw the box and thought this was the skull of his first wife, as he is not forgetting her. She ignited the oven and incinerated the skull. When she informed her husband what she had done, this and yet another, not only was his corpse discarded in a demeaning manner and not buried, but his skull was incinerated. That ordeal atoned for some of his transgressions, and he received a share in the world to come. It is taught in a Braita that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, because of Hezekiah's boastful statement, quote, "And I have done what is good in your eyes," 2 Kings 20, verse 3, he also asked the prophet inappropriately, "What shall be the sign that the Lord shall heal me?" 2 Kings 20, verse 8. Because of his question, "What shall be the sign?" Gentiles ate at his table. The sign was that the sun reversed its path and appeared lower rather than higher on the sundial of Ahaz, leading the king of Babylon to dispatch messengers to Hezekiah. Because Gentiles ate at his table, it ultimately caused the exile of his descendants. The Gemara comments, this supports the statement of Hezekiah, as Hezekiah said, "Anyone who invites an idol worshiper into his house and serves him causes the exile of his descendants, as it is stated, and of your sons who shall issue from you, whom you shall beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylonia." 2 Kings 20, verse 18. With regard to the verse, "And Hezekiah was glad of them, and showed them his treasury, Beit Nechoto, the silver and the gold, and the spices and the precious ointment." Isaiah 39, verse 2. Rav says, what is the meaning of Beit Nechoto? It means that his wife, who typically did not appear before strangers for reasons of modesty, poured drinks for them. And Shmuel says it means that he showed them his actual treasury. Rabbi Yochanan says it means that he showed them a weapon so powerful that it breaks another weapon. Apropos the exile of the descendants of the kings of Judea to Babylonia, the Gemara cites an Aggadic statement about the destruction of the temple and the sins of the Jewish people that caused it. With regard to the verse, how, or echa, does the city sit solitary? Lamentations 1:1. Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says, for what reason were the Jewish people stricken in their plight bemoaned with the term echa? It is due to the fact that they violated 36 prohibitions punishable with karet that are enumerated in the Torah, corresponding to the numerical value of echa, spelled Aleph Yod Kaf He. Rabbi Yochanan says, for what reason were the Jewish people stricken in their plight bemoaned with an acrostic based on the Aleph Beit, as the book of Lamentations contains multiple alphabetic acrostics? It is due to the fact that they violated the Torah, which was given in the language of the Aleph Beit. With regard to the phrase, does the city sit solitary, Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says that the Holy One, blessed be he, said, I said, in Israel dwells in safety, the fountain of Jacob in solitude to a land of grain and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew, Deuteronomy 33:28. Indicating that their solitude should be one of wealth and prominence. Now that they have rejected my directive and cleaved to and learned from the Gentiles, their dwelling shall be solitary in sorrow. With regard to the phrase, quote, the city that was full of people, Lamentations 1:1. Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says they would marry a younger female to an older male and the older female to a younger male so that they would have many children. With regard to the phrase describing Jerusalem, quote, she became like a widow, Lamentations 1:1. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, like a widow, but not an actual widow. Rather, Jerusalem is like a woman whose husband has gone to a country overseas, and yet he intends to return to her. With regard to the phrase, quote, great among the nations in princess among the provinces, Lamentations 1:1. Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says, every place they go, when exiled among the nations, the Jewish people become princes to their masters due to their wisdom. The sages taught in Braita, there was an incident involving two Jewish people who were taken captive on Mount Carmel, and their captor was walking behind them. One of the captives said to the other, the camel that is walking ahead of us is blind in one of its eyes and laden with 2 wineskins, one filled with wine and one filled with oil. And 2 people are driving the camel, one a Jew and one a Gentile. The captor said to them, stiff-necked people, from where do you know these matters that you cannot see? They said to him, we know that the camel is blind from the grass that is before it, as from the grass on the side that it sees, it eats, and from the grass on the side that it does not see, it does not eat. That is, it eats grass only on one side. And we know that it is laden with 2 wineskins, one filled with wine and one filled with oil, as wine drips and sinks into the ground, and oil drips and floats on the surface. And we see the difference on the ground. And we know that 2 people are driving the camel, one a Jew and one a Gentile, as the Gentile defecates on the road, and the Jew, in the interest of modesty, goes to the sides of the road to defecate. The captor pursued the camel and its drivers to determine whether the statements of the captives were accurate, and found that the reality was in accordance with their statements. He came and respectfully kissed them on their head, brought them to their house, and prepared a great feast for them. And he was dancing before them and said, blessed is he who chose the descendants of Abraham and granted of his wisdom to them, and in every place that they go, they become princes to their lords. And he released them, and they went to their houses in peace. The Gemara returns to its interpretation of the verses of Lamentations. She cries, or bacho tivke, at night. Lamentations 1:2. These 2 cries indicate by the use of a compound verb why they are written. Rabbah says, the Rabbi Yochanan says, one is a cry over the destruction of the temple, the first temple, and one is a cry over the destruction of the second temple, which was destined to be destroyed. The term at night indicates that the crying is over matters of night. As it is stated, with regard to the response of the Jewish people to the report of the spies after the return from the land of Canaan, and all the congregation lifted up their voice, and the people cried that night. Numbers 14, verse 1. Rabbah says that Rabbi Yochanan says, that day that they heard the spies' report was the evening of the 9th of Av. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to the Jewish people, you cried an unwarranted cry, and so I will establish for you a reason to cry for generations. Alternatively, the term at night indicates that with regard to anyone who cries at night, his voice is heard due to the ambient silence. Alternatively, the term at night indicates that in the case of anyone who cries at night, the stars and the constellations cry with him. Alternatively, the term at night indicates that in the case of anyone who cries at night, one who hears his voice is touched by his suffering and cries with him. There was an incident involving one woman, the neighbor of Rabban Gamliel, whose son died, and she would cry over his death at night. Rabban Gamliel heard her voice and cried with her until his eyelashes fell out. The next day, his students noticed that he had been crying, and they removed the woman from his neighborhood so that Rabban Gamliel could sleep. And this is referring to Tikkun Chatzot, someone who gets up at midnight to pray for the destruction of the temple. Or this is, that's an allusion to that. It says, with regard to the verse, quote, and her tears are on her cheeks, Lamentations 1:2. Rabbah says that Rabbi Yochanan says, this is like a woman who cries over the husband of her youth, as it is stated, lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. Joel 1:8. With regard to the verse, her adversaries have become the head, Lamentations 1:5. Rabbah says that Rabbi Yochanan says this indicates that anyone who torments the Jewish people becomes a leader, as it is stated, for there is no weariness to him that is set against her. At the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward he afflicted her more grievously by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan and the Galilee of the nations, Isaiah 8:23. Rabbah says that Rabbi Yochanan says from this verse one derives that anyone who harasses Israel does not grow weary. With regard to the verse, this is nothing to you. I'm going to pause a second. I do have a playlist for Tikkun Chatzot. So if you're interested to learn about it, the midnight prayer, I do have a playlist early on. I created this. It's just missing. The one thing that I wanted to have in the playlist that I didn't get to it yet is the tractate to Mead. But anyway, of the Talmud. But anyway, with regard to the verse, it is nothing to you, all you who pass by, Lamentations 1:12. Rava says, the Rabbi Yochanan says, from here, there is a source from the Torah for complaint. That is, it is appropriate for one to make his suffering public so that others will have compassion for him. With regard to the phrase, all you who pass by, Rav Avraham says that Rav says that it is as though Jerusalem said, they have rendered me like a city of those who violate the most fundamental precepts of the law. And morally, as with regard to Sodom, it is written, quote, then the Lord rained upon Sodom brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, Genesis 19:24. While with regard to Jerusalem, it is written, quote, from above he has set fire into my bones, and it prevails against them, Lamentations 1:13. In both cities, fire rained down from heaven, and it is written, for the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the sin of Sodom, Lamentations 4:6. The Gemara asks, and is there partiality in the matter? Why was Jerusalem not overturned like Sodom? Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says it is because there was an additional measure of suffering in Jerusalem that was not in Sodom. As with regard to Sodom, it is written, behold, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom, pride, surfeit of bread, and careless ease was in her and in her daughters, and yet she did not strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. Ezekiel 16:49. The people of Sodom were not subject to the afflictions of hunger and famine, whereas with regard to Jerusalem, it is written, the hands of compassionate women cooked their own children, Lamentations 4:10. The residents of Jerusalem were punished with great severity. The verse, quote, the Lord has spurned all my mighty men in the midst of me, Lamentations 1:15, means that this is like a person who says to another, this coin was invalidated. The prominent residents of Jerusalem were crushed and discredited, and their reputations were irreversibly tainted. With regard to the verse, quote, they have opened their mouths against you, Lamentations 2:16. Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says, for what reason did the prophet precede the verse beginning with the letter Pei to the verse beginning with the letter Ayin in several chapters of Lamentations? Since Pei means mouth and Ayin means eye, it is for the spies who said with their mouths, befihem, what they did not see with their eyes, be'einahem. With regard to the verse, the eaters of my people ate bread, and they call not upon the Lord. Rava says that Rabbi Yochanan says, any Gentile thief who eats the bread of the Jewish people tastes the flavor of bread, and one who does not eat from the bread of the Jewish people does not taste the flavor of bread. Apparently, they enjoy only what they steal from the Jewish people. With regard to the people referred to in the phrase, quote, and they call not upon the Lord, Rav says, there are the judges who are not God-fearing, and Shmuel says, these are school teachers who do not perform their job in the name of God. The Gemara resumes its discussion of the kings and commoners enumerated in the Mishnah who have no share in the world to come. The Gemara asks, who enumerated them? Rav Ashi says the members of the Great Assembly enumerated them. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says they sought to enumerate one more, King Solomon, in the list of kings with no share in the world to come. The image of the face of his father, King David, came and prostrated itself before them, pleading to omit Solomon from the list, and they paid it no heed. A fire came from heaven, and the fire scorched their benches, and they paid it no heed. A divine voice emerged and said to the members of the great assembly, do you see a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall stand not before obscure men. Proverbs 22:29. See the greatness of Solomon, who preceded construction of my house, the temple, to the construction of his house. Moreover, my house he built quickly and in just 7 years, and his house he constructed in 13 years. Therefore he shall stand before kings. He shall stand not before obscure men. And it is inappropriate to enumerate him among the wicked. And they paid it no heed. A divine voice, a bat kol, emerged and said, shall his recompense be as you will it? For you loathe it, so that you must choose, and not I. Therefore speak what you know. Job 34:33. Only God, and not the people, determines who has a share in the world to come. The Gemara adds, those who interpret the Torah metaphorically would say, all of those enumerated who have no share ultimately enter the world to come, as it is stated, Gilead is mine, and Manasseh is mine. And Ephraim also is the strength of my head, and Judah is my scepter. Moab is my washing pot over Edom, and I will cast my shoe. Philistia, cry aloud because of me. Psalms 60, 9-10, and 108, 9-10. Gilead is mine, and Manasseh is mine. This is referring to Ahav, who fell in Ramoth Gilead. Manasseh, in its plain meaning, is referring to King Manasseh. Ephraim also is the strength of my head. This is referring to Jeroboam, who comes from the tribe of Ephraim. Quote, Judah is my scepter. This is referring to Achitophel. And that is the end of 104.